Welcome to this episode of Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I am Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I'm really, really excited to welcome you to 2018. Woo, woo, woo. Genuinely couldn't be more excited about the fact that it is the new year. 2017 was, let's face it, an absolute, I want to say catastrophe, but not necessarily a catastrophe, but filled with things that I never expected would happen. Politically I just 2017, I can't even describe it, to be quite honest. Politically, there were huge, huge changes last year that meant that things occurred in the business world, things occurred in what I would like to call the real world right now, that we just didn't expect to happen. And that quite honestly, the repercussions were so far reaching. You know, in the UK, we had decisions to make a break from Europe. In the US, we had obviously the election of a unique presidential candidate. That is my British niceness coming out there. But all of these things, you know, had major, major consequences, both for human beings as a whole, and also for businesses. You know, things like tax laws started to be reconsidered and changed. Things like trading laws. I know in the UK, we've got lots of things coming up around the GDPR, which leave people in a bit of a quandary about what to do and what is best to put in place for their business in 2018. And one of the big discussions that we've been having in my membership site in the Dotties over the last couple of weeks in between the Christmas and New Year period, that limbo period, has been all about planning ahead for 2018 and working out how we can really set ourselves up for success in the new year, making sure that we are setting the right goals. So that's what today's topic is all about. It's about planning ahead for the new year, making sure that you're planning for success, making sure that you're keeping it simple in order to be the most successful that you can be in 2018, making sure that you're not setting yourself up to fail for the new year. But obviously, first, as we're pals, new year. How was that for you? Christmas, how was that for you? I'd love for you to drop me an email, let me know how your Christmas and New Year was. Personally, mine was, yeah. Anyone else have that feeling where they're like, wow, it was actually really busy? Christmas Day was kind of nice. My mum came over with her new boyfriend. So that was very lovely. Actually, he got me and Sam presents, and I was very surprised, but also went back to that kind of kid-like perspective of, wow, he's bought me presents. He must be great. And he actually is. So that's wonderful. And then we went off to visit Sam's parents for the limbo period. So New Year's, we went up from Boxing Day to New Year's, and we spent a couple of days with his mum and a couple of days with his dad. And then we had a party planned, right? So, of course, I want to wind back a year. 2016, New Year's Eve, Sam was working, so we spent just kind of curled up in a room watching films, ordering Domino's pizza, and not even having any alcohol, because when Sam is working, he doesn't drink. So we sat there, all good, all fine, having a wonderful time, watching some films, eating some pizza, and out of the blue, and here's a spoiler alert for those of you who are not okay with stories about bodily fluids, listen away now. I was just really sick, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm so sick, and it's awful, and couldn't even blame it on alcohol. This year, New Year's Eve, we wake up New Year's Eve morning, and and I'm sat there, and I'm like looking around, and I look at Sam, and he's looking a little bit white, a little bit clammy. I say, are you okay there? And he's like, oh no, I think I'm going to be sick. So we had this lovely party lined up, and we weren't actually able to go because last year I was sick, this year Sam was sick. It looks like we have hit that kind of point in our lives where the universe is telling us never to party hard again, and just makes us sick beforehand, which is great because actually, hangovers, who needs those? So that was Christmas. It was lovely. We saw lots of people, ate lots and lots of food. This week, we're actually detoxing, which is pretty hideous. I'm not going to lie. We have a fridge full of food, and instead we're choosing to juice and, eat healthily and all that kind of thing. Which means ultimately, if I'm honest, that when Sam goes back to work next week, I'm just going to be eating frozen Christmas dinner leftovers. So it's going to be perfect. I'll put all of that Christmas weight back on straight away. So I hope that you guys are having an epic, epic Christmas period. And if you haven't gone back to work yet, congratulations. Enjoy more time off. And if you have, and you're kind of a bit like, oh, I'm in goal setting hell, this is the episode for you. So without further ado, let's dive in and cover off the important stuff that's needed on a Monday morning. So the idea for this episode actually has to be credited to one of my favorite musical artists of all time, Eminem. I am obsessed with his new song with Beyonce. It's called Walk on Water. If you haven't listened to it and you're not an Eminem fan, please go and listen to it. Become an Eminem fan. It's actually one of the few songs that doesn't have that much swearing in from him, and it's not kind of like angry, rah, rah, I hate everyone. It's more about legacy leaving. And it was really interesting. I was listening to it in the car. Obviously, Sam and I had a 6-hour journey up to his parents. And so we listened, Radio 1, and it was on pretty much nonstop. So out of the 6-hour journey, we probably heard it like 7 times. And it really, really frustrated Sam because every time it came on, I was learning more and more of the words, and eventually had this entire podcast episode planned out in my new notebook. And I was like, I have to get to your parents. I have to record this episode. So, Jessica Lorimer, social since 1989. But anyway, the point is, Eminem is one of my favorite artists for a couple of reasons. One, he is incredibly intelligent. It doesn't matter what you think of his music, honestly. The man is incredibly intelligent. He demonstrates all of his intelligence through his art. And I think that's really impressive. When I was growing up as a teenager, I didn't really know anything about politics. I didn't know anything really about different kind of like gang cultures. I didn't know anything about, Brooklyn for a start. I didn't know anything about a lot of kind of cultural differences between certainly the US and other places that I'd grown up, because as I was growing up, my parents were moving around. We were living in multiple different countries. I was an army brat. And so he opened my eyes to all of this stuff that was going on in the world within popular culture, within politics, within education, and did it in a way that actually resonated with my age group. And I think that's massively, massively intelligent. Obviously, I wouldn't advocate that you go and get your children to listen to Eminem. It can have some unfortunate side effects. Dropping the F-bomb more than occasionally for about 2 years is probably one of those. So if you have children, if you have teenagers, he's probably not going to be your first choice artist. But in terms of goal setting and in terms of leaving a legacy on the world, turning things around, being resilient, and understanding how to forward plan for your business and for success, Eminem really is an artist that we need to look at and understand how he does it. And so when I was digging into this song, I realized that, of course, the first point behind setting big goals is not, and actually, no, the first point behind setting big goals and achieving them is not about just picking the goal. Okay. And as I was listening to the song, let's say 7 or 8 times over the course of that drive, I realized something that possibly people have been telling me for years, is that it's all well and good to set the big goals. It's all well and good to say, I want to make 10K a month or 20K or 50K or 100K. But actually, if you don't have the mindset that's going to help you get there, it ain't going to happen. Okay. And this was huge because I was sitting there and it has this particular lyric in the song itself. And I'm not going to rap it because rapping is not one of my skills. But the verse itself actually goes, always in search of the verse that I haven't spit yet. Will this step be just another misstep? To tarnish whatever the legacy, love, or respect I've garnered. The rhyme has to be perfect, the delivery flawless. And it always feels like I'm hitting the mark till I go sit in the car, listen and pick it apart. Like this shit is garbage, right? So right there, he's telling us, he's like, yeah, I thought it was great. And then I listened back and I'm like, ugh, super self-critical. Now, how many times do we do that in business? Right? How many times have you written an email and been like, yeah, I feel like this really shares what I needed to share with my audience. I feel like it says everything. You hit send and you get crickets. So you're like, oh, it was crap. Right? it becomes so easy for us to be super self-critical. And when you're an entrepreneur, when you're working in a fairly isolated way, it's so easy to get caught up in the comparisonitis of social media and looking at people and assuming that they're doing better than you are, or that they are their business is going to be more successful than yours, or that their ideas or offers or packages are going to sell out quicker. And it's not actually true. But if you don't have that resilience, and you're not setting yourself up mindset-wise for success, you are going to find it really difficult to hit your goals. So when you are planning out your goals this year, don't just think about, this is what I want to hit. Think about the kind of person you have to be in order to get there. When I'm setting out my goals, when I was first starting out and I was looking at hitting my first 10K month, I remember thinking, look, this is impossible. In the UK, average salaries are not 10K a month, okay? When you can be on a 6-figure salary and after they've taken away tax and everything like that, it's not 10K a month. So for me, making, that profit, making that money that would leave me with $10,000 or £10,000 in my bank account afterwards it would never happen. Mindset wise though, I looked at all the people who were already doing it and I was like, okay, what's the difference between them and me? Who do I have to become in order to be the person that, makes 10K a month? And I realized that it wasn't about the traditional stuff that we see pimped online, right? It wasn't about go and get a massage every week or go and get your hair done every week or anything like that. Those things are lovely, but really they weren't about the person I had to become. The person I had to become had to be much more stringent around boundaries. I had to have clear boundaries around, when are people going to pay me? What do I do if they don't? How flexible am I willing to be about payment plans? I had to think about, the level of community I wanted to create, the respect I wanted to garner, how visible I wanted to be, the kinds of things I wanted to put in place to show that I was a credible expert in my field, and so it was about stepping up into that next level person. And that next level Jess, for example, she didn't take shit. She wasn't going to be bothered when somebody said that she was fat, or that actually they didn't like her latest opt-in, or they thought the branding colors were crap or whatever. She just kind of went, okay, cool, you're not my people. That's fine. And continued delivering the message that needed to be heard to the people who actually needed to hear it. Okay. And 3.5 years later, obviously the business is still here. I am still here. Doesn't mean that the occasional trolling or people moving on and not necessarily jiving with your message or anything like that, doesn't mean it doesn't upset you anymore. Of course it still does. But ultimately, Next Level Jess was always striving to be a better business owner. Somebody who really was setting her business up for success, for sustainability. I've also just realized I've been talking about myself in the third person for a little while, and that's a little bit creepy. So the nub and gist of this really is, in order to set yourself up for success when setting goals in 2018, you need to have that mindset component. I can't stress it enough. So if you haven't already, really get that piece of paper out and look at who is Next Level Jess, or Next Level Emma, or Next Level Jen, or, Next Level Mark, whoever that might be, whatever your name is, in other words. Look at who you are and who you would have to become in order to achieve that income goal, that visibility goal, credibility goal, whatever those are. Okay. Now, the second thing is that I know it's tempting to rush into the new year and go, new year, new start. I'm going to launch a ton of new stuff. And you know what? It always really scares me when people say that. They're like, oh God, everything I did last year was naff. This year I'm going to do everything new and it's going to be expansive and I'm going to have a blast. I'm going to do all these things I've never ever tested before and hope for better results. And you can see where I'm going with this, right? New doesn't always equal improved. Okay. Now, over Christmas, I'm not religious in any way, shape or form, as I think I may have mentioned before, but every year my parents brought me up Irish Catholic, and every year we go to midnight mass with my mum. And every year, do you know what? It's actually kind of nice. We go to midnight mass, we sing hymns. I love Christmas carols, so it's all good, and I think it's lovely. I think it's lovely from that perspective of, I would not go to church every week, but I actually think that the community that they have, especially at Christmas, is really rather lovely. And I quite look forward to it. It's why I stay up so late, given my proclivity for wanting to go to bed at 8 o'clock these days. Staying up until midnight is kind of a big deal. So this year we went to midnight mass, and frankly, I was devastated. Instead of the usual, elderly lady playing the organ, warbling slightly Christmas carols, and, a little bit of kind of humour around the sopranos and notes being off key and stuff. This year, they had introduced an all-new, all-improved band to the mix. You can't see my face right now, but honestly, it's a picture of disgust. They had brought in what was effectively some kind of weird heavy metal band, and they frankly massacred "O Come All Ye Faithful" and "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," which I've never actually seen with a heavy metal backing track. Now that I have, I can safely say I will never ever want to see it ever again. It was a pure example for me that, sometimes we go in, we have these ideas, we want to improve upon things, absolutely, but we have to be very careful. When we are planning to improve things, when we're planning to tweak things, when we are planning to bring something new into the mix, it has to actually add value. It doesn't need to be a heavy metal take on Christmas carols. Like, all of the 85-year-olds in the congregation with me were kind of like, oh dear Lord, where the heck did the organ go? And instead they've got like teenagers on drum kits and a bass guitar, and every verse being like, "Oh come all you faithful," which I just can't even say it without laughing. And it really disturbed them. And as we were leaving the church, so many people said, "Won't be coming next year. Won't be coming next year." And I thought that was awful, because the church in itself had done nothing wrong. They had done all the right things in that they had tried their best ultimately to improve upon the service that they had last year and the year before and the year before. And they tried to bring it in for a younger audience, and that's great. That's awesome. Unfortunately, it turned off their existing audience, and it made them think, well, actually, if I'm not the right audience for this church anymore, I'm going to leave. And quite honestly, I couldn't see hundreds of kids in the church. There was like 5, including the kids in the band. So, be very careful when you're setting yourself up for sales success in 2018. Really think about, are you looking to bring in new customers this year? Are they different to your existing audience? And if they are, that's wonderful. But don't cater purely to them. Don't create new programs and expect that your entire income or revenue is going to be generated just from that brand new audience. Think about things that you already have that you can improve upon, that you can tweak, that you can perhaps regenerate. Price differently, market differently, so that it will appeal to both of your audiences. And that way you're not losing revenue for the sake of just trying to gain an entirely new audience in January, because it puts a huge amount of pressure on yourself. Okay, so when you're thinking about that, look at what you did last year. What can you re-release? What can you improve upon? Think about what you actually enjoyed running last year. Could you run it again? Perhaps you want to raise the price on it. Perhaps you want to brand it differently, market it differently. Perhaps you want to turn something that was like video content into an ebook. Just because you're wanting it to be new year, new start, it doesn't always mean that releasing tons and tons of new stuff is going to be the least stressful way to do it first out. Start generating money in January first, and then as the year goes on, that's when you start releasing new offers. It's when you start bringing new things into the mix to make your life easier and to make your cash flow ultimately a lot better. Now, the other thing that we need to be thinking about really is, where are you going to set these goals? In what area? Because I was speaking to a few of my friends over Christmas, and we were talking about our goals, and everyone's always very surprised because I don't really do New Year's resolutions because, ultimately they're always the same, aren't they? Lose weight, drink less, exercise more, all that kind of stuff. And I got a bit disillusioned a few years ago because I thought, well, I'm setting all these New Year's resolutions and I'm not really losing any weight or, actually drinking less or exercising more. And it wasn't really until this year that I put that key focus on my health, and it wasn't a New Year's resolution. It was me looking at the key points in my life and thinking, okay, what do I want to change? What is important to me this year? I guess what I'm saying here is not, it's more about not setting arbitrary goals, not saying I want to have a 10K month because so-and-so down the road said that you should have. It's about not necessarily aiming to, get published in Forbes, because that apparently is what all the successful coaches are having to do now. Spoiler alert, I have been published in Forbes. I was very grateful. Thank you very much, Forbes, if you're listening. But it is this kind of thing. Don't set goals just because other people say that that's what they're doing or that's what they're focusing on. Look at your life, look at your business, and think about what is actually going to be your key focus. What is important to you this year? For example, I know that this year I've got specific business goals, and I always look at those in terms of revenue, because without revenue, your business cannot succeed and cannot thrive. I look at them in terms of visibility, so branding and visibility. Where am I in terms of PR, in terms of raising awareness about my brand, those kinds of things. And then I also look at it in terms of learning and development. What do I want to learn in my own business this year? How do I want to grow as a person? How do I want to grow as a business owner? So those are the three areas that I look at in business. And for me, this year, revenue goals have gone up. So the latter quarters of the year, quarter 3 and quarter 4, are, for me, expected to be high revenue quarters. Quarter 1 and quarter 2 is very much for me about spending time on branding, on visibility. It's where I'm speaking at a lot of events. It's where I am planning to be featured in a number of magazines. I'm talking at a number of colleagues' events. I'm going on podcasts. I've got lots of different things coming out. So those 2 quarters for me are very much focused on branding and visibility, and obviously client delivery, right? But the last 2 quarters of the year are going to be very, very much revenue focused. So that will impact what I do this year, in terms of revenue, in terms of revenue generation, cash flow when it is, but also in terms of setting myself up for the year ahead, in terms of the content I'm creating, in terms of my plans for things like holidays, right? I don't know if anybody else has this legacy from corporate, but I've already planned out when my holidays are going to be for 2018. I know when I'm not going to be working. And that's really important for me because all of those things will factor into how I generate that revenue this year. The other things for me around branding, visibility are, like I say, the PR stuff. I'm speaking at a bunch of events. I've got lots of podcasts coming out, podcast interviews coming out. I've written a bunch of things that are being published this year. I have a book coming out in February. Lots and lots of bits going on that are designed basically to get my brand out there. So think about what you're doing in terms of your own branding and visibility. For some of you who are newer, that is going to be setting up your first Facebook group. It's going to be networking in other people's Facebook groups. For some of you who are, a year in, a couple of years in, you might be more focused on getting some PR, looking at national publications or international publications, online publications, journals, podcast interviews, those kinds of things. Setting up your own podcast blog, vlog if you're a video content generator. You need to be thinking about that for 2018. What is your kind of content plan and what is your credibility plan? And then finally, think about the areas that you want to learn and grow in this year. For me, this year is very much about implementation. Last year for me, I did lots and lots of things around learning development. I took many, many courses. I was involved in a high-level mastermind. I had a high-end coach. I was very much about learning and development in order to scale the e-commerce side of my business. This year is very much for me about the execution and implementation of that. And that means that I'm going to be learning through doing. Okay, so for me, it's about having that kind of time each day where I'm actually doing the things that I spent the last year learning and tweaking them to make them efficient, effective, and successful. Okay, now, in terms of life goals, I think this is sometimes the thing that we forget about business owner or being a business owner. We forget that it's okay to have life goals too. For me, my health is a huge priority this year. I'm not necessarily focused on weight loss, but I want to be stronger, leaner, fitter. And for that reason, I've signed up to do a half marathon in the first quarter of the year. Again, slightly dreading that. But I've signed up to do a half marathon because I know that in order to get to being half marathon ready, I'm going to have to do, in all honesty, a lot of the things that would make me stronger, leaner, and fitter anyway. And as a result, I probably will lose weight. So it's all good. You know, there are other life goals that I have. There are some things around holidays and lifetime trips that we really want to plan out and take this year, moving different countries to explore on the scratch map, lots and lots of things that are going on. So please, if you are setting goals for 2018, don't just set the kind of arbitrary, I want to make this much by this day. Think about really what is important to you this year. What did you not do last year that you feel like you missed out on? What would you really like to do this year that you feel would enhance your life experience, right? Do you want to take up a new hobby? Do you want to learn a language? Do you want to hire a different coach? Do you want to focus on marketing or sales or, even goal setting, productivity in your business? Like, really think about the things that are going to be important to you and actually do them this year, because that's kind of the hard part, I guess. And that leads me on to our final point for today. I'm aware this episode has been strangely long. It feels like the Christmas ones were tiny and then I've gone back to normal length. I'm like, whoa, I've been talking for ages. So the final point today is about execution. Okay, there is no point in setting a goal if A, you don't believe that it's going to happen, so the mindset stuff. B, you don't have the kind of, or you haven't thought about whether it's going to be tweaked or tested or completely new or catered to your existing audience. C is obviously which area is it in and is it actually important to you? But D is about execution. It's the most important part, arguably, about goal setting. If you never do, you will never achieve. Okay. I think it was Yoda, and I'm obviously on a Yoda spin because Star Wars came out recently, but Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. Now, I disagree with Yoda. I firmly believe that trying leads to succeeding, but I also agree that you make a choice. 2018 is your opportunity to make a choice. Do or do not. Get a planner and use it. Hire a coach, implement the stuff they're helping you with. Don't just buy a self-study course. Get something that's actually going to keep you accountable. Don't just make random investments into your business this year. Really think about the things that are going to enhance the experience for you, for your customers, and ultimately help you have that successful, sustainable business model in 2018 that really will let you have the life and the business that you love. So there you have it. That is our first proper episode of 2018. It is going to be an epic year. I, for one, am super, super excited about it. There are some big goals coming. There are some huge, huge and amazing things coming, certainly from my community. So if you are part of the podcast community and you want to get in on some of the awesome free content that I'm going to be putting out in the first week back of 2018. So for me, that's Monday, the 8th of January. I'm officially back to work. Please make sure that you are inside the private Facebook group, the Smart Leaders Sales Society over on Facebook, or that you nip over to my website, grab one of the freebies already there and get yourself on my email list, because there is some awesome, awesome stuff coming in 2018 and I can't wait to share it with you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, obviously please hit that subscribe button, make sure you don't miss another one, and make sure that if you are not already, that you are involved in another area of my community, either the free Facebook group, Smart Leaders Sales Society, or that you are on my email list so you can grab all of the juicy sales goodness that I have coming for you this year. Have a wonderful, wonderful start to 2018. I am really excited to be on the journey with you, and I can't wait to see you officially back live on Monday, the 8th of January. I'll see you in the next episode.